Let's bring in Victoria Howard. She's the editor and founder of The Crown Chronicles, and royal commentator and journalist Daisy McAndrew. Victoria, we've been hearing a lot about Prince Philip, about his role. But if you were to kind of step back and say how you think he will be remembered, what would you say?
I think for many people, Philip's going to be the man who kind of helped modernise the monarchy, and additionally, someone who often put his foot in it. He would often be light-hearted in situations. You know, people are quite tense when they meet the Queen or members of the royal family, and those comments and those gaffes that he made were almost deliberate to a point. So I think they're the two things that people are really going to remember the Duke of Edinburgh for.
Daisy, he had a reputation for not being, shall we say, PC. He was apparently dashingly good-looking. What don't we know about Prince Philip? What was he like in private, behind closed doors?
I think Victoria made a really good point there about he's often characterised as being gaffe-prone, as if it was entirely accidental. But I think it was a lot of the time cleverer than that, as Victoria hinted at, because he was somebody that understood people. He'd had, as your correspondents were explaining earlier, a very, very troubled upbringing as a young child. He understood pain. His mother had had the mental health illnesses and had been incarcerated when he was only 8. He was sent to the UK. He was taken away from his father. So he had a very troubled, very upsetting early life. And I think that stayed with him and gave him a certain empathy. And as Victoria was saying, he did want to put people at their ease. I mean, he also clearly got bored quite easily. He was a very active man. You knew that he would roll his eyes if he thought somebody had said something stupid, but equally, if he thought somebody had said something interesting or a little bit different, he would engage. A friend of mine was just reminding me that she sat next to him a few years ago at an event, and this is a very, very accomplished, high-tech businesswoman who's now in the House of Lords. All sorts of amazing things she's done. The only thing he was interested in was the fact that she'd set up a chain of karaoke bars, and he thought that's what was interesting. And that also shows he was very much like the Queen. He was into modern technology. He was into modern advances. So he wasn't the old sort of stuffy stuffed shirt that some people might assume stuck in the past. Both he and the Queen are really very forward-looking.
And Victoria, I mean, let's stay on this, because if he had sort of that maverick side, that's what I hear you both saying. Was that just a little tiny bit of rebellion? Mm-hmm.
I think so. You know, he kind of understands that these institutions have restrictions placed upon them and the people within them, but he knows that light-hearted gaffe can make a big difference. And also, it must be quite a boring job, shaking people's hands all the time, meeting all these people with things that you possibly don't have any interest in, and have to put this brave face on it. So it kind of makes everything better for everyone. And I think people just love that about him. And that's the one thing that they're really going to miss, is that this is a light, really, that's gone out within the palace.
Yeah, Daisy, I love hearing about the romance. I mean, the idea that she was 13 and he was like 17 or 18 when they met. And they've been together for 70-plus years. Just talk to us a little bit about that romance.
Well, it's certainly true, just as the historian Andrew Roberts was saying in your package there, that they met as teenagers. The Queen was only 13. Prince Philip himself was 17 or 18. It was 1939 when they met. It was just before the outbreak of the Second World War, and he was a young sailor. He was about to go off to sea during the war, and very dashing, very good looking. The other element to this is that, as I'm sure as many of your viewers will know, Prince Philip had an uncle called Louis Mountbatten, who was very, very significant in his upbringing. He actually gave him a lot of the stability that he didn't have because he didn't live with his own parents and so on. Louis Mountbatten was also quite manipulative. He had his eye on the prize, and he deliberately introduced his nephew, Prince Philip, to the Queen. hope. Obviously, you can't force love or attraction, but you can hope for it, and that's certainly what we think Louis Mountbatten did. So I think he was very delighted with this. The people who weren't so delighted was actually the establishment, the royal family, the courtiers. They actually viewed Prince Philip with some distrust. Yes, he had a couple of royal titles, but he was from kind of the wrong side of the royal tracks, if you like. He didn't really come with much money. He wasn't really what they had imagined the young princess should be going for. So I think he had quite a tough time when he first came on the scene.
Victoria, to your point, I mean, here are two people who are married at 26 and 21. At that point, Great Britain still reeling from the Second World War. They've spent more than 70 years together. Who fills that void now for Queen Elizabeth?
I think that very much depends on COVID at the moment. Of course, the UK's lockdown restrictions are easing slightly. Things seem to be going in the right direction. You would naturally assume it would be Prince Charles, but of course, he spends his time in various locations. He splits it between London and Gloucestershire, and in the summer, Scotland, not too far from Balmoral. But of course, he has his own wife, and it's coincidentally Charles and Camilla's their 16th anniversary today. So that's another kind of sad coincidence for the family. Charles has already been accompanying the Queen on various engagements that Philip normally would have before his retirement. For example, the state opening of Parliament, he's done that a number of times beside his mother. So I think we're naturally going to see him stepping up more and more. But equally, some of the younger royals, William and Catherine, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, we will see them out a bit more. Of course, Harry and Meghan are over in Los Angeles now. So I also think we'll see Edward and Sophie, who are the Earl and Countess of Wessex, performing more duties, probably on the Queen's behalf. This is a huge blow to Her Majesty. She's really going to have to take some time to grieve him. This is a huge relationship in her life. It's been going on for so many years. It's natural that she's going to need some time to adjust to that. No, so I think we'll see a period of kind of her stepping back a little bit before she can get back into that normal head of state role, because it's quite a busy job. It's not just a few engagements here and there. It's pretty much every day for her, except for Easter and Christmas Day.
Victoria, Daisy, thank you. She herself 94 years old. Thank you for your expertise this morning. We appreciate it. And we'll take a look at Buckingham Palace this morning. Flowers already being laid there in honor of the man who served by the Queen's side for more than 7 decades. The news coming at noon in England. Windsor Castle, the place where the prince is said to have died peacefully today.